Hello, everyone. This is Asbed Bedrossian.
And this is Hovik Manucharyan.
And we're talking with Gev Iskajyan on the latest conditions and events during the Artsakh Blockade. Gev is with the ANC in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. He lives in Stepanakert. Today is May 11, 2023. This is the 151st day of the Artsakh Blockade, which has now become kind of a lifestyle, unfortunately. Good evening, Gev. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. Good to be on.
Gev, it's been a while since we talked, but we are talking today on early morning of May 12th. This was a day of intense fighting in the area of Sotk and other areas in Gegarkunik. We have 4 wounded. This was an escalation in terms of the types of firepower used. Obviously, the illegal checkpoint on the Hakkari Bridge has only been reinforced, if anything. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about daily attacks against civilians in Artsakh and the situation there in general. And also maybe let's talk about the new Russian general and if it's anything new or it's going to be same old, same old. To begin with, the Azeri aggression in Sotk, how did the people in Artsakh react to it? Is there anything in terms of preparing the populace or, for similar aggression, I guess?
I think in terms of what is the relation to what happened, in Sotk compared to what's going on in Artsakh, I think that's, twofold. One is obviously anytime there's a military escalation there, we have to, in essence, be prepared for any type of military escalation here. The second front of concern for an Artsakhi is that every time that Azerbaijan engages in these types of attacks, it's usually correlated with a negotiation process, something that is to be talked about,
Right.
Something that is to be signed. And a lot of that, if not the vast majority of that, centers around Artsakh.
Gev, over the last couple of days, we've had the Azeri checkpoint near Gornitsor blocking the ICRC convoys transporting Artsakhi patients to medical care they need in Armenia. I have a couple of questions about this. First of all, what is the real-world effect of this on people there? Because I've noticed that over the past few weeks, the number of patients has been increasing, and now routinely we hear numbers in the teens, like 12, 14, 15 at a time. And second, are these patients able to return after they receive their care, or are they stuck in Armenia? What's the situation on the ground?
Yeah, these patients return when they're able to. So sometimes Azerbaijan hinders even ICRC's ability to come in and out of the country. And especially in the last couple of weeks, there's been at least one reported instance of denial of Azeris letting them through. And I know for over a week, that contact line was frozen until I think about yesterday or today. So on that front, I think this is a part of a wave of Azerbaijan trying to see what it can get away with at that checkpoint, because it's not an isolated event. Even the Russian peacekeepers 2 days ago were stuck there for 14 hours. So Azerbaijan's trying to see what it can get away with.
Are you expecting this link to become more and more problematic?
I think it's about how much can Azerbaijan get away with without a proper reaction, whether it's from the ICRC. Look, they're a nonprofit organization or whatever, but they are a behemoth in themselves. And there's like political implications for not letting the ICRC through. So I think, Azerbaijan's prying at what it can get away with.
The other major topic that we should talk about is the Sarsang Reservoir. And we know we've been talking about it from very early on. There are reports that it has basically almost reached the critical level of after which it can't be used. Obviously, this is a deliberate policy by Azerbaijan to forcing Armenians to use the Sarsang Reservoir. But the reason it's been depleting is because it's being used for electricity generation, and the electricity cable from Armenia is still cut. There is no gas going into Artsakh. There is no electricity going into Artsakh. So the Artsakh authorities have been forced to rely more on the Sarsang Reservoir. But now that it's been depleted, what is the outlook? What is Artsakh going to do for energy? Are you hearing anything about more rationing of energy, electricity, and so forth, and blackouts?
Yeah, in terms of the blackouts, the last week or so, we've seen an increase. Some of that may be due to the storms that have hit Stepanakert and Martakert and Marduni. But look, we've talked about Sarsang a few times. And, there are those acute, immediate concerns. The water is going to run out. That means that we can't use it as a hydroelectric plant, which which means that electricity here is going to be severely shortened. But today I kind of want to touch on the long game. And what is the point of this? It's to put pressure on Artsakh, but this is a deliberate tactical maneuver by Azerbaijan, because what they want to do is, by not allowing this electricity in, letting Sarsang deplete, they want Artsakh to then become energy dependent on Azerbaijan. They're going to turn around and say that, look, we have electricity to offer you. And for them, it is a kind of process of integration. So I think that's a really important angle that we've got to look at. It's like, why are they doing these things? And they're doing it to destroy our energy sustainability, energy independence. And then through reliance on them, they want to start the conversations of integration processes and what so.
Are there some rumors that there's a second pseudo-eco movement that is in the offing, and this time it's targeting the Sarsang Reservoir?
Yeah, and to that effect,
Yes,
because if you
yeah.
remember when they blocked the Shushi Road, they did some preparation in media with articles that Armenians were polluting the environment and so forth, and then they came with the mine. So and we're seeing more propaganda in Azeri press related to Sarsang.
In regards to what's going on in the Mardakert region, specifically about these quote unquote eco activists targeting it. That has been circulating on a lot of Azerbaijani channels, and I can also say that last week I heard reports that there were suspicions that there are Azerbaijani groups actively working to figure out a way to do that. So that is a very real threat. I don't think that's just something out of the blue. And then you combine all of that with, as Hovik mentioned, the articles. Azerbaijan has this tendency to prelude what they're going to do by propaganda that they release beforehand.
Right.
So Lentsov traveled to Baku on May 4th, and they mentioned to the media to give Russian peacekeepers a week for any updates. And it's been more than a week now. So what was the outcome of the visit to Baku? I guess nothing, because nothing has been announced and nothing is happening on the Hakkari Bridge.
Yeah.
Should we just accept that this is another Azerbaijani entrenchment that we're going to have to deal with? What are your thoughts on that?
So from what I've heard, the goal of Lentsov's meeting in Baku, very shortly after he arrived in Armenia, was to ask for this blockade, this military checkpoint, to be lifted. So there's two sides to this. I think one, yes, he doesn't come back with results. That's not good. But the fact that he also doesn't, necessarily agree to more Azerbaijani preconditions, the fact that they leave saying that, we don't see eye to eye in this, rather than the peacekeeping contingency saying, okay, we'll see what we can do with this. I think you have to take that for, whatever positive effect it has.
There were reports that Artsakh Human Rights Ombudsman Gev Iskajyan, Artsakh the foreign minister, have been meeting international communities and government NGOs. Is there any hope that strategy will change anything? I think that travel essentially to Armenia out of Artsakh is now at a standstill, right? Because of this passport regime that they have set up. Mm-hmm. And only those who would be willing to present their passports to the Azeris, and only in exceptional circumstances, they go through that checkpoint. What do you think is going to be the end game?
So, right now, in terms of the game that we're playing on the diplomatic field, look, while we don't have the capacity or the say-so that the Armenian government officials may have in these meetings with certain governments, I think it's always, and this is something that we do on the ANCA end, and we try to get on a lot of people that are representatives of Artsakh for this reason. Our biggest point is that, okay, you guys are having all these conversations, whether they be in Washington, D.C. or Brussels or elsewhere or in France, everything seems like is being considered except the voice and the will of the people of Artsakh. And that has to be put forth in all of these conversations. Right now, if you guys are paying attention to how Nikol Pashinyan is playing his diplomacy game, which is kind of what he's always done, he's running from one capital to the other because he can't get a good enough deal, or he comes to a standstill. And I think in this process, when you have a diaspora that has certain connections, it's also our duty to kind of speak up for the people of Artsakh in this process, and let them know that Nikol doesn't necessarily speak for everyone.
In fact, Matthew Bryza was in the press recently saying that if Nikol Pashinyan is able to subdue the opposition and the Armenian diaspora and basically sign another capitulation, sign away the hostages of Artsakh as a sacrifice to Aliyev. I don't know how to call it, but he's basically giving kudos and praise to Pashinyan and hoping that he can deal with this pesky diaspora and the pesky opposition. So it seems like if he's acknowledging the Armenian opposition and the diaspora, then I think there's something to that. So what are your thoughts in terms of more additional diaspora engagement?
So I would say the 2 points that Bryza made were the diaspora, which we know has been, traditionally, especially post-war, very anti-Pashinyan, not just because of him personally, but because of everything that he, stands for, especially on the Artsakh issue. When folks like Bryza, when Turkish lobbyists speak, they usually target the Armenian diaspora because we know of the traditional role that we've played on certain issues, from the genocide to Artsakh.
And this is one of their ways to divide us anyway.
Yeah, but what's also interesting is that, like, for all the failures of the opposition, even, parties that I'm a part of that, we haven't gotten to that threshold yet. One of the successes that we can say is that, look, I promise you guys that Nikol would have signed away everything much sooner if there wasn't that opposition pulling against him. And that, combined with the diaspora, has been hindering him from a lot of the things that he wants to do. And I also think that it's a good indication that we're on the right track. If people like Bryza are like, this is in his interest, he wants to get something done, it's usually just by, deduction. If that's in his interest, it's against the interests of the Armenian nation. So if these guys are ringing alarm bells, that means, 1, something is in the works, and 2, I think we're on the right track of where we're resisting the Pashinyan regime.
So, Gev, on May 9th, which is traditionally called Ieraton in Armenian, the triple holiday, the liberation of Shushi, the formation of the Artsakh Defense Forces, and of course the victory in the Great Patriotic War. It was, I think, celebrated in Artsakh with a huge rally in the Renaissance Square in Stepanakert. Were you there? What can you tell us about how that holiday is celebrated there, especially now, like since we don't have Shushi temporarily?
Look, I think one of the worst things that's happened since the war on a psychological level for Armenians is the fact that we forgot that we've been victors in critical moments, and this defeatist mentality that has been part of not even Pashinyan's diplomatic policy, but it bleeds into the psyche of the nation. I think it's really important to look back on these days to know that we have victories. And specifically for Artsakh, I think it was good for the people to come together. That camaraderie, I know it might not mean much, but when you're talking about a blockade, when you're talking about 150 days in, to have the majority of the populace here on the same page about what we're fighting for and what we're going towards, I think that's always a good sign. And I see that event very positively.
I think that, especially in the diaspora, our people are sometimes ignoring the immense impact World War II had on Armenia and Artsakh, and Armenians had in the victory. And some people say that it's not related to Armenians. It was a USSR thing. But I think about it. What would happen if the Nazis did indeed capture Stalingrad? There was a secret agreement between the Turks and the Nazis that if that happens, then the Turks would invade Armenia. So I would actually like to remind our listeners that, we should not forget even the World War II victory and the immense amount of contribution that Armenians, especially Armenians of Artsakh, have had in that war. All the generals, all the marshals that we've given, 1 out of every 3 Artsakhis was conscripted to the war. 30% of the population, 40,000, and 20,000 did not come back. Meanwhile, in Azerbaijan, I think overall, it was, 1 out of 9. So that's also another example of how the population and demographics of Artsakh were manipulated by the Azerbaijani government even back then. Of course, we know it's been happening even before that, but still, I think I want to remember the Armenian contributions to the victory on May 9 and the fact that I think it contributed to Armenia still surviving today.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to close there. Thanks for talking with us, Gev. We'll talk to you soon.
Good to be on, guys.